Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Neon. I am here with Geeky Sparkles.
Hello.
And just when you thought everybody was done talking about the Acolyte, it has become another one of those things. One of those things that is incredibly polarizing and will be talked about for years to come.
I don't even think it's incredibly polarizing, because that would imply that a lot of people are invested in it and are split. But there's not. They just didn't watch it.
Okay, so a handful of stans and ass-mad journalists are at the polar opposite ends of the general public's opinion of this show, which got canceled after one season because nobody watched it. But now the bigots are being blamed. Now the Star Wars fandom is being blamed. Of course they are.
Not the real fans. The fans in quotes who are echo chamber, zealots. Whatever they explain it as.
Yeah, it's a very bizarre but not surprising article that we're seeing here. We'll talk about this. Now, I want to disclaim it before we get into it. Please don't attack the author.
It is marked as opinion.
It is marked as...
I want to make sure we say that.
Opinion.
Not a fact, like some of the other articles were marking it.
But this is the most 2017 thing. This is the exact same shit that we saw with The Last Jedi, and every time something comes out in Star Wars that the majority of old school fans don't like, they're bigots, they're racist, they're misogynists, blah, 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 blah. And it goes on for years. And here we go. We knew it was coming. Before we get into it any further, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. Guys, get woohoo if you do.
Woohoo!
This is coming from Inverse. Lucasfilm's cowardice is finally catching up with them. As the studio ignores the Acolyte, it puts the entire Star Wars saga at risk.
The whole saga, because they didn't like... Because, again, I want to point out, the Acolyte had crap viewership, which means for people that are challenged and can't understand things, it means that in general, more people didn't watch it at all than watched it. And they keep doubling and tripling down and focusing on those they claim hate watched it or haters or whatever.
Yeah.
But those views counted in the final view count with the fans' views of the show, ones who like the show. It all counted as the same. The problem was, even combined, the ones who liked it and the ones who hated it and hate watched, was not enough viewership to save it, because in general, the public, everyone, didn't matter if you're white, straight, male, didn't matter if you're American, could have been a global audience, they did not watch the show because they had no interest in the show.
Nope.
It's not about bigotry. It's not about cowardice. It's not about any of the things that they keep trying to say it's about. It's about apathy and the fact that the general public did not give a crap about the show.
The general public at this point does not give a crap about Star Wars, or at least not Disney Star Wars. They still like the original trilogy. That's why Disney keeps going back to that well to sell merchandise and video games and stuff like that. But everybody's checked out from Star Wars, right? And it's just years of mishandling of the franchise. And it's going to be hard, if not impossible, to get those people back. Right out of the gate, though, she's like, before anybody had seen the series, the Acolyte found itself at the center of an anti-woke campaign. And Stenberg argues that echo chambers full of fanboys and trolls might have influenced Lucasfilm's decision to abandon the show.
Again, I want to point out, they keep saying these echo chambers. And meanwhile, there are certain groups that are known for being echo chambers themselves. So pot or kettle on that one. But, when the films did bad and divided the fans initially, like The Last Jedi, they tried to walk it back with The Rise of Skywalker, made no one happy. They won the fans back with The Mandalorian, and then they tried to do things like Obi-Wan and putting Leia in it, which made no sense. Well, the fans are so outraged, they keep doubling, tripling down on the stupidity, and it ends up that no one is watching, not just the bigots and the trolls. Yep. Nobody's watching this. So the fact is, they listened to people they shouldn't have listened to, which would be the people who like this, and it has destroyed the franchise.
Anyone who's spent an extended time in fandom spaces is all too familiar with these echo chambers. Yeah, it's usually journalists and a handful of people on social media and a handful of community managers and a handful of people on like Reddit that tend to gatekeep it. I digress.
Yeah, they're gatekeeping it, but they're trying to blame it on everybody else.
Yeah. It's in Star Wars especially. A vocal minority can feel like an overwhelming rabble.
The problem is, it was the silent majority who tanked the show.
Yes.
Not the vocal minority. Again, it's Schrodinger's fandom. Somehow you're a vocal minority, yet you have all the power to tank the show at the same time. It's common sense.
Okay, well, speaking of sense, let's talk about her complete lack of business sense. Now, again, do not go after this author, but I did check out her bio, and she basically carpetbags from like every website, comic book resources and Slash Film and all these nerd sites. Anyway, no one's saying The Acolyte was a perfect series, nor should it transcend any constructive criticism.
But no criticism is considered constructive. Any criticism is immediately met with, you're a racist bigot.
But Lucasfilm's choice to cancel the series outright, rather than stand by its cast and crew, address the show's flaws, and give it the space to succeed, speaks more to its own cowardice than it does to any sound business sense. Left unchecked, that could actually cause more trouble than The Acolyte ever could.
You mean like doubling, tripling down on Disney's sequel trilogy, and then, the Force is female shit that destroyed the entire franchise?
$180 million is what they spent, right? On this show. $180 million on like 8 episodes of subpar science fiction television. I'm sorry. Math is racist, I guess, because nobody watched it. If a lot of people watched it, like, look, so sometimes we see this kind of work in reverse where there's a lot of outrage online, but it doesn't affect the product at all once it's actually launched, right? Hogwarts Legacy, prime example. Journalists complained. Actually, journalists working at a lot of these outlets complained about Hogwarts Legacy existing because of J.K. Rowling. She gets paid whatever. It still sold like 25 million copies. It didn't hit the general public. The general public did not care about the show. They're not watching the YouTubers and the Twitter drama and the whatever. They're not
reading articles on Inverse either.
No, they don't care. The general public, the number of people that didn't give a shit to make this show a failure is far, far larger than any racist, bigot, misogynist, hate troll campaign, because normal people that have Disney Plus, they don't even pay attention to any of that shit. They turn it on. They're like, oh, what's this new Star Wars show? Yeah, it looks like shit. I'm not watching it. The last, 10 Star Wars things have been shit. I'm not watching it.
Plus, I think people are just apathetic because there's just too much of it.
There's too much of it.
But it's not about cowardice. I mean, I'm so tired of hearing that. Then it was cowardice before, and you kept doubling down on things you knew were going to be divisive in the fandom. You knew weren't going to fly, but you did it anyway because of, checkboxes and the Force is female.
Oh, God, now they're bringing, oh, my God.
It's everything you expect.
Kelly Marie Tran, John Boyega, Rise of Skywalker, and they threw the Last Jedi away for the Rise of Skywalker.
Wait, go back up there. You got to see this. They're talking about John Boyega and about how it was anti-white propaganda, that people didn't want John Boyega and they didn't want Finn. And they said they took Finn's backlash to heart, and he was positioned to be a key player, but he was later sidelined, The Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker.
He was sidelined in
Kelly Marie Tran. Kelly Marie Tran is why he was sidelined.
Yeah.
Here's what happened. John Boyega was front and center of the trailers, starred at the movie. Everybody figured John Boyega's character, Finn, was going to be a Jedi. And it was going to be a very interesting thing because you have an ex-stormtrooper turned Jedi. Cool. People were very, very upset when they went with the white woman Rey instead, including the people, the bigots and the trolls that you hate, a lot of them were mad about it. They bring up him being shrunk down on the Chinese poster, which I want to point out, it was the quote unquote vocal minority bigots and trolls who caught that in the first place and called it out in the first place. It wasn't this person in Inverse. Kelly Marie Tran's character, Rose Tico, and Holdo were brought in to The Last Jedi. That was a Rian Johnson choice, and they were literally brought in to foil Poe and Finn to make the male characters, somehow toxic and bad so that they could learn them. That's what they were there for. There was no reason for it because both Finn and Poe were great characters. There was no reason to do it. They did it anyway. And I don't agree with people getting harassed on social media for being not white. I think that it happens, but I think that it is such a vocal minority that we're supposed to ignore that. Like you say, we should ignore the vocal minority because they're not indicative of the fans. I think that's the case. You might have a couple racist asshats, but that's not indicative of the fans in general. And you keep painting them with a broad brush across the board. But you don't like when people do it to you. But the whole pointing out about Finn on the poster, that was the quote unquote vocal minority you hate who brought that up.
So let's talk about this, right? Because she seems to be saying this is racist. Star Wars fans don't like black characters, whatever. In 1998, the very first Star Wars action figure released for the Phantom Menace was Mace Windu. And he had a blue lightsaber, which was weird because it turned out he actually had a purple one.
Yeah.
But he was a preview figure. They had him, and then they had one of the battle droids on the scooter, or whatever they call the Stap, or whatever they called it. And everybody in 1998 was super excited that Sam Jackson was going to be in Star Wars because he just came off of Pulp Fiction, and that was a big hit. Everybody was like, oh my God, Sam Jackson's going to be a Jedi. That is absolutely badass. And it was hard to find those Mace Windu figures.
Yeah, I'm thinking there has been all kinds of representation in Star Wars, from the books, the games, the films across the years. It's not like, no one watched it. The Jar Jar Binks thing, it wasn't because the actor was black. It was because the media, because we didn't have social media then, raised a holy shit fit over him and saying he was a stereotype that caused the problems. It wasn't even the people you're blaming.
It was the media. And I think a lot of these journalists, I think they're too damn young to have any context, because the internet rewrites history daily and everybody uses Wikipedia. And we know that the Wikipedia editors are biased, but they rewrite history. But I was there. It was hard to find a Mace Windu action figure because everybody was excited about the new Star Wars movie and everybody was excited about Sam Jackson. And also the Jar Jar Binks thing was 100% the media, because they had a whole, I remember it was 60 Minutes or, 2020 or whatever. And they were like, oh, is, the latest Star Wars movie racist because all the racist caricatures and,
it wasn't the fans. But anyway, get going down. They go on the article and they talk about, the poster in China, which I want to point out again. That was the people that you
that
hate.
was Bob Iger, I'm sure.
But I'm saying it was. But I'm saying the people that caught it and pointed out initially were not people like Inverse. No, they were the fans. That's what they're shitting on. We're the ones that noticed it and said,
wait a damn minute. And I'm telling you, the reason Finn was minimized, it wasn't because of the alt-right Star Wars bigots. It was, we want Chinese money. That's what it's about. Because I hate to be that guy, but in China, movies with leads of color do not perform that well unless they hide them, and that's the truth. And at that point in time, that movie came out when Disney was knee deep in Chinese money. They wanted all the Chinese box office receipts they could get.
The fans of color, the solution has always been clear. Lucasfilm needs to take its power back. Its relationship with the fandom is now akin to between a parent and a spoiled child. When the vocal minority throws a tantrum, the studio seems to listen. No, the silent majority didn't watch the fucking show. And the studio listened. Plus, if it was about throwing tantrums, you guys throw tantrums all the time. And they've listened, and they've doubled and tripled down on stupidity, and they've ruined the franchise. And now we're to a place where people are apathetic, and they don't want to watch it. It had nothing to do with the leads being black or any of that stuff. It had nothing to do with that.
I'm telling you. There are a lot of people at Lucasfilm that hate the people you hate, and they go out of their way to antagonize them. I think the High Republic was designed specifically to antagonize them. The ruining of Luke Skywalker was designed specifically to try to shake them out and move things beyond the Skywalkers. And they took a lot of delight. They took a lot of public delight, including, Pablo Hidalgo laughing at Star Wars theory because Ryan Johnson, certain people associated with Lucasfilm they've also, fired Gina Carano. They didn't fire other people for political hot takes, but they fired her because of her right-wing political hot takes.
It was a she, and they didn't, she was by a minority, and they didn't do anything about that. Then look at the next paragraph, though. That in turn has created a bubble where nothing real can ever exist. Real being what they want.
Real?
It's why Lucasfilm's recent output, with the exception of Andor, has been unbearably tame. The studio would rather make safe, placatory choices to save its own skin.
No.
They think it's most vulnerable collaborators to deal with the backlash alone.
No, they actually, I do remember the one year they actually ignored James Earl Jones' birthday. James Earl Jones, who's legendary black actor, by the way, who was the voice of Darth Vader.
And nobody cared.
Actually, people were kind of mad when it turned out that he was Luke's father. Spoiler! Because I'm going to get people who are like, oh my God, you spoiled Star Wars for me. That he wasn't a black guy. Because they're like, well, it was James Earl Jones. Why wasn't it James Earl Jones under the helmet? Clearly, this is her age speaking. She's an ass mad stan. And she's just looking for something to be mad about.
Why would the studio, why would any business, let's say you're a burger joint and you put out a new, chicken sandwich. at the burger joint, and people don't like your chicken sandwich because the way it's made, they don't like it. And so they, the restaurant, just when they don't sell any and they have all this unused chicken sandwich and they're losing all kinds of money, cancel the chicken sandwich and go back to, or change the recipe into something people want. And then they continue to sell that because it's selling and they make money. That's the same thing. When you have an audience not wanting to watch your shit, you have to change up the recipe and give people what they want, what they expect at the burger joint, to continue to make sales and stay in business.
Yes.
Because people have expected the same thing for years. You can add some, make it some hot, fiery offerings like Burger King does, and you can still, make it less tame, but you still need to give people the burgers they expect.
Yeah. And
it's not hard.
Hollywood is learning this. I think Lucasfilm, this show was too far into production, I think, and it cost too damn much and they couldn't just cancel it outright, right? But it takes a long time to pivot, to right the ship, to get away from the iceberg. They've already hit the iceberg. They're just trying to stop the ship from sinking. But Disney is learning, and we've seen it this year. Just a couple of releases this year with Disney. Now, mostly it was on the Fox side, but they're trying to go back to basics. And it's not because of the alt-right bigots or whatever. It's because of the box office. That's it. That's all they care about. At the end of the day, all they give a shit about is the box office. Now, if the DEI Super Adventure Club series did amazing and was making $1 billion at the box office every time they put out a DEI Super Adventure Club movie, then I guarantee you they'd be making more movies like that.
But it's like you could have diverse casts. You just have to have a good story that feels like Star Wars, and they don't. That's just it.
Lando and Mace. I mean, yeah. It's a running joke that there weren't very many black people in Star Wars. It's a running joke. But Lando and Mace are incredibly well-loved characters. Nobody had a problem. I can't say nobody had a problem with them being in Star Wars.
Okay,
but
it's kind of like now. It was such a small number that you have to admit no one had a problem, but it's such a small number that you just disregard it. You don't use it to paint everyone with a broad brush. They didn't used to.
Can you imagine now we had message boards back when the Phantom Menace came out. We didn't have social media, but Can you imagine if social media was around back then and it was like the Phantom Menace, if it was a box office failure, which it was not, it was huge because it was the first new Star Wars movie in years. But if it was a flop, I could just see people being like, it's because there's a black Jedi in it, isn't it?
No, then they wouldn't have because no one cared then.
Nobody cared.
We keep saying no one cared about that stuff then.
Actually, I remember, talking about it being a small universe in Star Wars. And I think I mentioned this before, but I remember there being fights on message boards. People were pissed. They're like, oh, well, obviously Mace Windu is probably Lando's dad because, he's black and Lando's black. It's like, dumbass. What, is there only one black family in Star Wars?
Right?
Then they thought about it. They're like, oh, yeah, maybe there is only one black family in Star Wars.
I know, but I'm just saying,
people.
But people didn't think anything of Mace Windu being black.
No.
They wouldn't argue the same things from now because it was such a non-issue back then. Constant movies and shows that everybody just didn't care. It was, diverse cast and no one gave a shit because it was normal.
Yeah.
It was already normalized. You guys had to literally undo it, raise shit to try to, make it that now you're trying to normalize. Well, you've already took and unnormalized.
Well, yeah, it's like reinventing the wheel, and this is ending. I mean, we're seeing it. We're talking about video games and these last couple of talking about the DEI Super Adventure Club, Concord and Dustborn and Suicide Squad, and that's happening in movies too. People are actively rejecting stuff they think, and it's not because of the alt-right. It's not because of the online trolls or whatever. The general public is tired of it, and they're tired of being called names if they don't like a certain thing for legitimate reasons. Like, you can look at the Acolyte and be like, hey, I don't give a shit about the racial makeup of the cast, which
I didn't care about that at all.
I didn't care about it. I was like, whatever. I don't give a shit. Is it good? No, it's not good.
Well, it's a disservice, though. It's a big disservice because Hollywood has gotten people so turned against this stuff because they're expecting, like I said before, many other things that they use the woke term all the time, which I don't like. But there's a difference between being just diverse organically and being woke, quote unquote. And the thing is, people are expecting it to be pushed into wokeness, even when it's not. That now people that when something isn't, they're just automatically labeling it as that, and they're blaming the diversity and DEI, even when it's not necessarily what the problem was. You know what I mean? It could have been a good show, but they won't even check it out because they're so worried. Haunted Mansion last year, for example.
Haunted Mansion it was done dirty. Disney did that movie dirty, and it
was good, and it was very diverse, and it was just a good movie.
It was a good movie. And again, if that movie had come out, if the Haunted Mansion movie, the new Haunted Mansion movie, not the Eddie Murphy one, but the new one had come out in like the 1990s, they would have just dropped it and said, "Come see the Haunted Mansion movie. We got Danny DeVito. Come see the Haunted Mansion movie." And there wouldn't have been a conversation. That's the thing. Back in the day, like we've actually regressed because
That's what I was trying to say. It's been normalized, and they're unnormalizing it, regressing.
Look at the Rush Hour movies. The two leads.
I love those movies. We used to go see them all the time. We used to go. We were married or dating. I can't remember which. We used to go to the movies to see it when they came out. We're like, we gotta go see it. People were dating. Yeah,
we were dating, and we went to go see the Rush Hour, and like nobody was like, wow. There's no white male lead in these movies. We can't go see them. They were huge hits. Rush Hour movies were huge. Beverly Hills Cop, huge. You've actually made problems with this nonsense that were already like, we were over this, and now we're regressing because you're right. Now people will look out like, oh, there's a lesbian in this. It's probably woke.
Right. And the thing is so it's actually, even if something is good, people are just going to assume because Hollywood has trained them to do so. So it's actually, you've done it to yourself. This echo chamber, the only echo chamber I'm seeing are the idiots in Hollywood telling each other that, you didn't do this, you need to do that. You keep saying echo chambers. Echo chambers I see all the time on social media, and those are the ones who block you if you don't agree with them. Or they, oh, you don't vote the way I want you to, so I'm blocking you. That's an echo chamber. And I see way more echo chambers skewing one way than the other. So I think it's highly ironic they keep using this echo chamber terminology. Now, that being said, I do think that, there's echo chambers on both sides. Yeah. I'm not going to say there isn't, because on the other side of it, people just want to hear the negativity, and they don't want to, and if you point out things that like, well, actually, if you look at it fairly, they don't want to hear that either. They just want to, have everything, their own echo chamber. They want their biases confirmed, and that would be on both sides. But that has nothing to do with why this show failed.
The general public didn't care.
Yes.
I mean, that's it. It's really that simple.
Both echo chambers watch the show.
It's not, they're like, it's cowardly of Lucasfilm. I'm like, wait a second. So Disney is in financial trouble right now. All of Hollywood's in financial trouble, but it's cowardly of them to not want to risk another $180 million because, you want another season of the show. Go crowdfund. I told these people.
Not if you'll watch it to warn it.
No. Go crowdfund it. The change.org petition does jack shit. You put your money where your mouth is. And I'm serious.
But you can't crowdfund it because you can't do that.
No, you can do a GoFundMe, and you can get a big old fat wad of cash, and you can walk into Bob Iger's office.
They're not going to take that money
and say, here, we'll give
you. That's not going to do jack.
We'll give you $100 million to make us more of this thing. And they'll take it.
The problem the problem with the change.org is how easy is it to make a fake name with another email? And I mean, so of those signatures, probably half of them aren't even real. Or at least if you have a funding campaign, it's probably more likely to be real people. But they're not going to renew it because it wasn't there. The interest wasn't there. It's not worth the cost. There's no return on investment. No, they're not just going to make it out of the goodness of their heart because they want to make you happy, even though the audience they needed didn't show up. They're not going to make more of the same and further alienate people. It's not going to work. I'm sorry. Get over it. Get off your echo chamber with you and all the other blogs we keep pointing out to you, like all these sites within, lockstep or repeating the same things. They're all friends on social media. They're all in the same Slacks, writing 100 different articles trying to amplify this narrative that the general public is being somehow shafted when the general public didn't give a shit.
Yep.
That's at the end of the day. It's not because of bigots and trolls. It's because the general public did not care. And the bigots and trolls were the echo chamber that watched, same as your echo chamber that watched.
Yeah, I guarantee you the general public includes a lot of black folks, a lot of women, a lot of Latinos, a lot of LGBTQ. Plus, they just did not care enough to watch the show because Disney Star Wars has been ass more often than not.
Case in point, inverse, another article. Lucasfilm afraid of Star Wars? Lucasfilm's coward. They're afraid. Do you see how they're doing these narratives in lockstep, trying to force this narrative to be true? That's what an echo chamber, that's well, not echo chamber, but like that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to tell the people that that it's because Lucasfilm's afraid.
Yeah.
Lucasfilm isn't. They're afraid of losing money.
Yes. And it's probably not Lucasfilm. I'm telling you, it's probably coming from the top. It's probably
I'm sure
Disney.
Tiger.
Yeah, I'm sure he's like, hey, we cannot afford to have more multi-million-dollar misfires like this, Kathy.
Canceling stuff.
Yeah,
they already said they canceled Marvel shows and movies. They're canceling all kinds of things because they were cutting costs. A lot of things got scrapped. It is what it is. I'm sorry.
So we're going to wrap this one up?
Yes.
Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. We'll talk later.
Bye.